Well, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well tonight, or this afternoon, not night. And I'm fulfilling a little something here my daughters had asked me about. Said, would you tell us a little bit about your growing up and how you got involved and how you had time to do the racing thing as you were growing up, how its progression was, maybe a little bit about how you went from this speed to this speed to this time to this time. Just a little bit about how you grew up, your farm, or not my farm, but my folks' farm, which I grew up on. A little bit about the early parts and even some on up to today's parts. And I said, well, okay, let's do that. Where I grew up, I've told a lot of people this, is they asked me, so where'd you grow up at? And I said, well, you probably never heard of it, I'll tell you. And I tell them Barnardsville, and they're like, yeah, we never heard of that. So I tell them Asheville, oh yeah, we've heard of that. Well, it's a long ways from Asheville where I grew up, but it gives them familiarity with the territory where I grew up. And it really wasn't even a little town where I grew up. It was just out in the country. And we grew what we ate, just a self-sufficient farm. And, you know, we slaughtered our own beef, done our own hogs, our own chickens, our own deal, you know. If you wanted it, you grew it. If not, because we wouldn't have the money to do the store-bought thing, so we raised our own. And then in the summer, I had a lot of garden stuff, a bunch of garden stuff. Some of it we sold on the market. You know, if we had, we'd done a big job of green beans, corn, a lot of that which we could take to market. Now, when you took it to market, you didn't have to, you could buy a space in the market and sit and wait for people to come by, maybe spend a whole weekend there or whatever on it. Or there's what they call pin hookers there. And you would go and they'd look and see the stuff that you had, they'd make you an offer right on a truck. Well, I realize it puts a middleman in there, but it makes it a lot easier. You can get right back to the farm and get on with your other duties that you have. So we'd sell to the pin hookers. You got your money, you're gone. People say, well, you know, that took a lot of your profit away. Not really, because you could get back and work on your other stuff for profit for something else. We also raised tobacco. And tobacco was, you'd done it in segments, so it was money for to run your farm, have your family run your farm. And our tobacco crop came in, well, at the end of the year, you'd cut it. I mean, you started in the early spring, putting your plant bed out, then transplanting it, and keeping it up like just like you was growing something to eat on. You can't eat the stuff. And you get it out till it's cutting time. It has the big blossom, big bloom on the top. And you cut that out and it makes the leaves real wide and kind of a rough leaf on it. And you hang it up and you cut it in a big stalk, put 5 of them on a stick, and you put this up into your barn and let it cure out. Well, it'll usually cure by late November, early December, and then you start clicing it. When I say clice, you take one of the stalks, and it's all dried up now. Your tobacco leaf is turned brown, the stalks turn brown, and you find that mornings are kind of early foggy mornings, and makes it to where you can handle the tobacco without it getting dry and falling apart. Well, anyway, you put it in different clices, and you work out your whole crop that way, then you take it to market and sell it. And it's so much per pound. The buyers come by, the auctioneers come by, and they're selling it per pound. Then it was up, you could get sometimes $1 or $2 a pound for that stuff, which I understand is way high now. But at that time, that was pretty good money. But you could only grow so much because it's like anything else. They didn't want you growing too much. They'll get rich at this thing. So as per the size of your farm was how much acreage and tobacco that you could put out there. And they had to come out and measure it for you after you put it out. And if you had, say, like a 100-acre farm, we could have, this would be the size of the tobacco allotment that you could have. Well, when they'd come out and measure, and it was always such a shame, that usually the tobacco was up that high by the time they got there. You didn't know what size it was, you know, if you had, like, say, if you was getting to raise 2 acres, 2.5, you get it measured and you had to chop out, say, like 50 or 100 plants. Oh, heartbreaker. Now you got to cut them down, and the surveyor has to watch them being cut down. I mean, you can't just lightly dig it up. You got to cut it up. Well, anyway, so that's what your allotment that you have. Then you have to show that when you go up to sell it and on and on and on. Anyway, it's a long drawn out thing. But that's your winter money. That comes in close to Christmas time, so we can all have a big Christmas. And you're frugal with your money then, because it's got to last you on now until you get spring planting done, and then you get harvesting, say like tomatoes, potatoes a little later in the year, and a few of the crops you can take back to market and sell and get you money again. All a big cycle. And along about Thanksgiving time was when you had your big hog slaughter. In those days, it was pretty cold around Thanksgiving, and that was best because we didn't have refrigeration, and about everybody had a smokehouse, and then you had somewhere where when you slaughtered these, you got to do something pretty quick. Well, after you get it all cut up, you put it in your smokehouse. A lot of it you smoked, and then some of it you just packed in salt. And you say, that's all? Well, we bought thousands of pounds of salt, for the, and when it came into this time of year, when you're going to preserve that. But no, it will not go to waste. You pack it good in that salt. Then later in the year, when you say, well, let's get us a cut of this or a cut of this or whatever, just go out there to your smokehouse and scrape that salt off there good. And you can even wash it off some if you want to. And I can tell you right now that even though it's packed in salt, that at some point in the process, after you get it cooked, you might need a little bit of salt for seasoning on the thing. That's how well it does it. So it doesn't penetrate the meat like that. You'd think, if you pack it in salt, it'll be so salty you can't eat it. No, not the case, not the case. Well, that was how you got a lot of your money for your, to run your show, to run your farm. And that was your Christmas money, your school money for, we didn't need a lot. We took our own lunches to school, if you can believe that. It was just a self-sufficient farm. You wanted it, you raised it. Everything we didn't run to town for. I mean, that required a lot of gasoline to go back and forth to town, but which you didn't have, so you really planned your trips to and from town. Well, enough on that. Now, all during this time, not too far from our house was this guy Gene Sluter had a half-mile dirt track, and it's red clay dirt, and man, it was fun to go there. But you'd come home, and you was just this red color. It's just color of the dirt, And our parents didn't really want us to go to that a lot, but you couldn't tell them a story that you didn't go because they'd just look at you and say, well, that don't add up. You're the same color as the dirt. We know you went there. And they do. Well, I knew a lot of guys that went to that track. I knew the owner, Gene Sluter, and you couldn't get into the pits to go into the pits unless you was a certain age. Well, this guy Dick Bowens, who was a big mechanic, he'd get me in there. That's my boy. Yeah, okay. And then he was the one that also got me a job. I told him, I said, I'd like to work for one of these big guys, And he said, I can get you a job with Banjo Matthews. I said, really? Yeah, he said, you might be sweeping the floor and stuff like that. And I said, I don't mind. So I got my first job with Banjo Matthews up on Airport Road there in Asheville. And that was, oh my. I'd go from school over to Banjo's shop and work until they closed. And in those days, didn't have real strict business hours. They'd stay till 7 or 8, sometimes 9 o'clock at night. And the money was okay. And then later on, I told my dad, I said, Pap, I'd like to make a little more money, some spending money to throw around here, And he said, well, I ain't got it to give to you, but he said, Earl Clevenger's hiring. Now, Earl Clevenger was a big, he would, let's just say you had a big chicken house on your farm, and maybe you had 4, 5, 6, 8 houses of that on your property. That was your big money income. Well, he'd supply you with all the stuff, the little chicks and everything, the brooders and everything to get you set up in the year. And then to feed people, would set up your feeders. And here's the only thing them chickens saw. No, you didn't. You tried to limit your time as humans being in and out of the house. And you had a feed room in the middle. Say if the house is 100 feet long, maybe 200 feet long, your feed room was right in the middle of the house. Well, it had conveyors run both ways, but you could fill it up in the middle. You just go there and fill up your feed troughs because they were automatic. You fill those up. You didn't have to be in there where the chickens were, you know. Well, those chickens never saw darkness. Lights stayed on all the time. And what else could they do? Eat. Well, and that's what they did do. And when it came, they were about 17 weeks old, was what they called it. They were a broiler then, which wasn't ready for market. And you know, I think they've got that down to 7 weeks now. Wow, that's feeding them chickens fast. Well, anyway, so once you get them chickens ready to go to market, Earl would come around and he'd tell the people, okay, on like on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, we'll be there to get your chickens, and we'll take them to, there's a couple places we took them to Jamestown, Tennessee, and over to Morristown, Tennessee, and they'd be selling them the next day. Well, that's an adventure. Oh my, the way they, you know, process all that. Well, anyway, you had 13 catchers, chicken catchers, and you put 2 here, 3 here, 4 here, and then you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Well, and you're saying you've done that pretty fast. You had to do it real fast on it. Pick those up all at one time, and you got them here in your fingers, and take it out to the truck, and your chicken coop is already, you got one guy stays on the truck, and he's the one that when you get a coop full, and you just one trip fills a coop, put them in there, he puts it down, puts another coop on top, done. And with 13 catchers to get 5,500 on there, it's pretty quick. Well, you got $5 per load, which was paid under the table, and that $5 was all yours. Well, $5 in those days, that's big money. I said, whoa, I'll take that. Some nights we'd load 3 trucks. That was 15 clear dollars. I mean, that's good spending money. Now, when you had 3 trucks at night, one night we had 4, but that's kind of a standout. You wouldn't get home till about 3 or 3:30. I remember sometimes in the winter I'd get home, and my mom would just begin to start fires. We had one that had an old stove in the kitchen, and then one in the front room. That was our heat for the house. It wasn't much, but she'd say, son, I know you're young and strong, but she said, does it catch up with you? I said, I don't know, it's just to make some money for it. Well, anyway, I'd done that for 3 years, and that was enough. Whew, mercy's sake, would not suggest that to anyone to do that unless you just need some quick spending money. During this time, on the weekends, I got to spend it with the guys over at the round track and learned a bunch from those guys. And we have a lot of out-of-towners come in, out-of-towners racers. I mean, like the Petties come down from Randleman, Lee Petty, which is the dad, and then Richard. And them people weren't famous then. They were just racers coming in from out of town to try to claim the big prize like everybody else. Well, but you did get to meet them, and we were all doing the same thing. Well, anyway, it wasn't one of them like, oh, who is that type thing. So, but I got to learn about from the guys that was on our teams there in Asheville. And then along at that same time, we had a drag strip there out at the airport, Asheville Hendersonville Airport, and they had a drag strip there. Well, that didn't last too long because people thought it was going way too fast with not enough safety equipment and this and that, and we just don't need that. So that went on for 2 or 3 years, and then they just shut that down and never did get one back. Asheville still doesn't have one. Well, you can go to other places around there, Well, anyway, there's some famous ones around there. Shady Side, Greer, a lot of them around. And so I learned a lot about the drag racing then, and I felt at the time that I liked it more than I did the round track. And I got to drive a couple of, these guys said, you should race your truck right. I had a 49 Chevrolet 5-window truck, which nowadays is like, woo. Well, then it was like, it's a $200 truck. And I thought, it was a 3 on a tree, they call it. It had low gear and second and high gear. And if you get it just right, you could speed shift that thing from low into second. And I thought at the time, man, this thing flies. It run like a 17 or 18 second deal, got to take it out the drag strip. And boy, we've really done something. Like, yeah, right. And then you say, well, okay, That's the first. You have to start somewhere. You can't start as a top fueler. Well, I had a friend of mine on the station out there, Robert Putman. Him and there's a guy that's still there in Asheville. His name is James West, or Jim West. Call him the Wild Wild West, of course. And them guys constantly were getting 55 Chevrolets and stuff like that, little stripped down bodies. And every once in a while they'd have one for sale, just about a giveaway price. Well, I got one of them and had a 265 in it as one of the Chevrolet's first V8s. Overhead valve type thing on it. And it sounded good. I mean, it weren't all that fast. It had like I don't know, maybe 150, 160 horsepower, wasn't much. So it had a 3-speed on the column on it, but you couldn't hardly speed shift that thing because it had a big drop. When you come out of low, went down, then went up. But you done the best you could. And we got that down. This boy's tinkering and stuff. Got that down. It probably run, I had it out there one time, and it run like a 1602. And then one time we got it down to the top of the 15s, which we thought, man, look at us. We are in the big time. Yeah, right. Well, as you go on through life, you come down a little, you come down a little, go back up, come down, go back up, come down, go back up. And you go about as fast as your money will let you go. And that's kind of still true today. Along the way, I did eventually get down to pretty good in the cars. When I say pretty good, down in the 13s and 14s, because I had, in this muscle car era, you'd get, to give you an idea, I remember I went down to Parkland Chevrolet, and they had a Z28 sitting there on the showroom floor. And then that thing was expensive, $2,900. Can you believe it? $2,900, because the Z option made it be up like that. Well, literally, you think, well, why didn't you buy a bunch of them? Well, this is still a money thing, look at the cars today. You still got some Fords, Camaros, Chrysler, all kind of stuff now that's pretty rare, pretty fast. Well, why don't you just go buy 10 or 12 of them? Well, it's the money thing. Okay. Well, I got to figuring, why not, if they're all that fast, how about them motorcycles? They seem a lot easier to make them go fast than it does the cars, or less money maybe. Okay. So this guy, Luther Biggs, lived out in the little town of Weaverville. He said, let's fix up one of them 900 cows. Well, they weren't even out yet, so I said, yeah. Well, at that time, I had a 650 Bonneville Triumph. And it's pretty quick. It'd run like in the 15s, which was okay. Some of those guys had them in the 14s. Some of them had them even faster than that. And it's a 2-cylinder thing, like so. And then I got a Honda 4-cylinder, 4 carburetor, 4 exhaust pipes, all of that. I mean, it wasn't an overhead camera engine. It was just a 4-cylinder. Well, anyway, I had heard along the way, we knew some guys owned a motorcycle shop there. They sold cows and Yamahas and some of the others. He said, there's a 900 cow coming. Said, this thing is fast. Said, it's going to be a little expensive, but save up your money. Said, this thing is fast. I said, all right. So I put a deposit down. Didn't know what it was even going to look like. Well, and here they come in, And it was pretty. But, the thing was, the engine was faster than the frame, if you know what I mean. Because that thing at a certain speed, you could kind of like a tail wagging thing. Now, you had a couple of choices. You could either go faster and get out of that, or you could jam the brakes on and slow down. But if you left it there, just get the tail wagging faster and faster, and it's a pretty dangerous thing. Well, anyway, I got one. So Luther said, let's make this thing fast. And, okay. So I bought a Kirker header for it, some Makuni carburetors, a couple of different cams. I mean, it's all kind of stuff, And you're saying, well, where'd you get the money? I was working every kind of job I could get my hands on to do that. Well, finally, this is kind of an abbreviated thing. Got that down too. There was a drag strip down in South Carolina. Which of course has gone away now, housing. It's right there. It was pretty much in city. And we was down there just about every weekend for a long time. And he had, the only safety equipment he had was don't fall off the motorcycle. That's the safety equipment. So we went down there, it was in Spartanburg, and it's one Saturday night, and he said, where are you doing your burnout at? And I said, about 8,500, 992, something like that. And he said, you need to take it on up there a little bit. And I said, okay, I can do that. So it sounded a little like Cletus, take it on up a little bit. Well, we got up there to do the burnout. I thought, I'll just well do one on the thing. Well, I noticed going up there, it looked like somebody poured out some water. Well, I just went ahead and blipped it one time during that. And, okay. Well, I got up there to leave the line. I thought, he wants RPMs, but we're going to show him some RPMs. So I put that thing over like 92 or 95, and I didn't ease the clutch out. I just went, ding, turned it loose. And that thing went straight up. I said, whoa, what a ride. And so, the natural tendency is when you fall off backwards, is you're trying to grab onto something. Well, the only thing's there is you got over here, your brake, clutch, and over here, what's over here? Throttle. So as you're trying to climb back up on it, you're just rolling it more. Whew. And as luck would have it, it certainly wasn't skill. It ran out there in first gear, and finally, it just ran itself out and just kind of eased down. And I got crawled back up on it, kicked that thing up in second gear, and went on. So when I come back, my crew chief Luther, he says, what in the world was that? He said, the crowd went crazy. And I said, what did I run through? And he said, that's a new compound they've got. He said, it's called a VHT. I said, whoa, we're going to have to put a wheelie bar on this thing. Well, we finally got the thing down to a 952. Now, you can go buy one out of the showroom floor now and run it in the 9s. So, but that was then, this is now. That's the fastest I'd been on a motorcycle to that time, a car or anything up to then. Now, I have been faster in cars later on, but that was at that time. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. One little quick thing, and it's, to me, and you go down in the summertime, there's a lot of grasshoppers and stuff around. You ever notice a grasshopper's leg when he extends it on the back? It's kind of rough along the edge of that. Well, he had to wear a helmet, of course. And I remember riding down the track, running one, and I felt something leaned over here, and I felt something just nick my, just like a bug or something hit me in the neck, and because there's lots of bugs out. Well, I got back to the pit, and I got my slip there, and the guy said, you got blood on your shirt there where I picked up the ticket. I said, okay, didn't think more about it. So I got back to the pit, and Luther says, what is the matter with your neck? And I said, I don't know. What? I said, the guy down at the ticket booth told me. A grasshopper had jumped up, and I'd run into it, and it just barely made a little thin line. But bleed, oh my goodness, it had it everywhere. So, okay, that's enough of this on it. So, well, not too long after that, it had to make a choice. You're going to do the motorcycle thing, going to do the car thing. Can't afford to do both. The motorcycle it's a lot of fun, a bunch of fun on the thing, but challenging a 4,000-pound car with a 500 or 600-pound motorcycle, you pretty much know who's going to win that deal. And so I said, well, I'll stay with the cars. And through the years, so I took a keen interest in engine building. And my two big engine building trainers were Fred Miller and Ben Barnes. And you're saying, who are those people? At the time, they were the premier guys in Asheville there. Ben Barnes built engines for Iron Man Jack Ingram. Jack Ingram was the Saturday night racer that guy won everything. But look him up, Iron Man Jack Ingram. And then Fred Miller built them. He'd build engines for anybody. He preferred Fords. He'd do some Chevrolets, the big and small blocks on it. But he was very meticulous, really took his time on stuff, and his engines were always very different. And I learned from both those guys, man, they showed me a thing or two about engines on the thing. A lot of stuff I'd learned up to that point, you just wad up and throw it away. These guys were into it. Well, anyway, that was my engine building program on it, and both of them, of course, passed away now. But then Tim Gaddy had a hand in helping with engines, and he'd done a lot of framework setup and stuff like that. I mean, chassis setup. He knew what was going on with that. And then I had a nice career in service. That was probably a period in my life that, I have no regrets about the service. None. I have nothing bad to say about the service. We have the finest military in the world. We need to tighten up just a little bit on the thing. We have the finest military in the world. And I spent 8 years in the Air Force. Don't regret 1 second of it. It's probably to go to the defense of our country and to be there for our country. I can't think of anything any better. And I feel that there's coming a time when we're all going to have to tighten up a little bit, because, you know, the freedoms that we have, that we fought for on the thing, people around the world, they view that different. They want it, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it. We don't place so much, it seems like so much, value on it or whatever on the thing. I tell you, it's a priceless thing. I've been around the world many times on the thing, and I see people that don't have it, they're kind of a prisoner of their own stuff in their countries. And when you go to some of them countries and you see what they don't have relative to what we have, just as a natural course of things, you think, whew, and people are willing to die for stuff just to come over there. Well, that's true. Now, I'll not wax political on you here, I just wanted to share that with you. We have probably, in our organization here, when I say our organization here, the Cletus McFarland organization, I got to put it, and it's not really putting a plug in for them, but I'm telling you right now that that's as fine a group of guys and gals. There's no gals work there except in the merchandise center. But those guys they're class acts, every one of them on the thing. They all have different functions that they do, and they do them extremely well. I'm just there, you know. They got me. Well, to get the detail guy over here, well, it's just to get to be with them is really, it's an honor. It's a privilege, you know. I mean, they get on me for saying that. It's a job. Well, yes, it is a job. That's true. But there's so many people around the world that would say, I'll take your job. I'll work your job for nothing if they'll let me. And they probably would. But we have now, in what we do, when I say what we do, the cars that we get to do, the things we get to do at the tracks, oh my, I wouldn't trade it. I just wish I could live another ever how many years on things if I could do every event that we have and just on and on, but I know it's not possible, but it is certainly a career to get to be in every day. So when I wake up in the morning and think, okay, what's for today? Working on them hot rods on the thing. So we have, I know my daughter Tiffany has asked me several times about different things. My daughter Stephanie has asked me, well, why didn't you just do that as a living? Well, as guys well know, as you're into it today and you're doing it for a living, it's tough. I mean, I can make it sound, we won't call it romantic, make it sound enticing and good. But here's the thing, you have to sell product. You know, if that's your only means of income, you got to sell product to make it. So you look at companies like, say, well, a good one to look at is Motion Industries. Now, them guys are, in their own rights, second to none. But they build a lot of parts. And I'd say in the aftermarket machined parts industry and making like that, those guys are, they're way at the top. But you got to have faith in what you're doing relative to the market, that the market's going to say, yeah, we need that part. Else you're just stuck with a bunch of parts you've made and can't sell them. And that's called, you know, after a while, non-profit. But they do extremely well. And the thing of it is, my point in that was, I get to be around those guys through the week. I get to be with them at the racetrack. And it is truly an honor to get to be around them, because there's some thinkers in them organizations like that. And, you know, you're with that and you think, yeah, what makes them guys tick? I mean, when they get up in the morning, what are they thinking? Well, anyway, enough on that. I have now, here where I live, lots of projects of my own. You know, I have a 55 Chevrolet as a project, have a couple of projects I've already completed. I've got a 65 model Chevrolet pickup. It's done. And it's one of them things, you work on them for so long, you think, oh, it's what I wanted when I started, and you can't wait to get it done so you can sell it. Well, and this is not an advertisement for selling that, but it's a 65 model truck, and now that it's complete, and I'm going to sell it. So we're not going to do a car giveaway or nothing, just going to sell the truck. Well, anyway, that's that. I'll show pictures of it later on. And then we're doing two, I remember coming to here, a couple of people asked me, how'd you guys really meet? Well, I knew those guys from the racetrack, from the drag strip. And, when I say I knew them, just okay, I know who these guys are. That's the Cletus McFarland group, and that's this group and this group. And you'd see them just say hello, and you'd look at the equipment that they had, and it wasn't no, I didn't go out to eat or nothing like that with them, but I knew them to see them. Well, I had a business downtown. Me and a friend of mine from Indiana, we had a business downtown. We manufactured polishes, waxes, compounds, floor cleaners, all kind of stuff like that. This is what we done, because we had said in 1988 we was thinking about starting a company, and we cleaned cars up together. And he said, wouldn't it be nice if we could find products like we like to do the jobs we like? And I said, yeah, that'd be nice. So we cleaned on a little while, and I said, man, what if we just made our own products on the thing? And he just laughed. He said, yeah, ha, ha, ha. And that was that. Well, about 3 weeks went by, and I saw him again. We were cleaning cars, and he said, hey, man, was you serious about that? And I said, yeah. He said, all right, I've been thinking about it. He said, why don't you think about it? And I said, I have been. He said, I'll be the chemist. He said, I'll go to school. I'll learn the chemistry. I'll be the formulator. And he said, you learn all about the outside stuff and distribution, employees, warehousing, all that stuff. So, okay, got a deal. Well, 30-some years later, lots of struggles and stuff going through that, but it was doing along just fine. We had a lot of employees on it, had lots of products out there, doing a lot of private label work, and there were some people come by one evening. I say some people, there's a man and his wife and their 2 sons, and they saw we were there, so they got out and come over, introduced themselves, and said, we're looking to buy a business like yours. And I looked at Rick and I said, okay. And he says, yours for sale? And I said, well, it's not really advertised for sale, but everything's for sale, All right, so we'd like to buy it. I said, you know anything about this business? And they said, no. I said, it's a pretty tough business. And he said, well, it looks like it's running good now. I said, it should be. We got 30 years in the thing. It should run pretty good. I said, but it's tough. I said, why not here? We gave him our card. And I said, you know where we are now because you've evidently been here. And I said, take some time and think about it. It might be a week or 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever. And if you're serious, come back by and we'll talk more. Well, about a month and a half went by, and sure enough, they come back. I said, okay, we've thought about it. We want to do it. Okay. So they wanted to see the books, of course, which we showed them the books, and they wrestled around everything there for a few days, and they came back and said, okay, we want it. I said, all right. So we got everything rounded up, went down to the sign-in, or, to the transaction thing, and I told them, I said, we could, it wouldn't be embarrassing if you back out, because I said, you've admitted you don't know anything about this business. And I said, if you wanted to back out and say, we've been thinking about it. And I said, it wouldn't nobody be embarrassed. And he said, nope, that's what we want. And I said, I had my pen, and I said, there, sign that thing right there. And he did. So I said, okay, you got a business. And so I told him after the signing, I said, now Rick and I have done something for you that you probably don't know about it. And I said, he has agreed to stay on for 1.5 years or so to show you about some of the formulations and some of the procedures and all. And I said, I've agreed to stay 2 years to go over all the machinery and lots of different things. And I said, none of it's going to cost you anything. We're doing it as a volunteer thing. And he said, oh, you won't need to do that. And I said, I think you'll see different. Well, about 4 months into the program, he said, man, I'm so glad you guys decided to do this. So, but it turned out it runs real smooth now. And what I had done through that process, I had, Rick had made me a lot of formulas through the years that the formulas were great products, but it was better than what the market would support, the quality of it, and it is too high. So I told him, I said, now there's a certain number of formulas that don't go with it. I'd mentioned this to him before, it wasn't nothing clandestine. And he said, I understand. And I said, I might even want you to make products for me. And he said, that'd be great, which they do. So now then, that's how that I've stayed. I'm not in their workings or anything. I'm not on their board of directors or nothing like that on the thing. It's just that they make all of my products for me. I do go get to supervise the mixing of it. And if he want to, I can look at the bottling and just check on the quality end of the thing. And he allows me to do that, which is good. It's great, as a matter of fact. But it's I thought it was very nice of him to do that. Matter of fact, I'm going there tomorrow for a little while to check on some stuff that they've done for me that's in products that we've got in the flow right now. So that's how that came about as to the sale of the company. Now, when I sold it, James Towle, who lives very close to me, as a matter of fact, says, well, what are you going to do now that you've sold your business? And I said, probably just tinker around with my own cars, I've got enough to tinker with. And he said, well, why don't you come over to the shop sometime and talk to Cletus? I said, that'd be nice. It'd be okay. And he said, yeah, come on over. So I went over one day, and I talked to him, and he asked me what I'd been doing and what I'd done, on and on. I told him, and he said, well, what do you think of retirement? And I said, I don't even like the word. And he said, well, you want a detail? And get this, now I'm not a detailer, okay? That's not what I've done. I taught a detailing class, but it was a how-to class, and I still do that today. Like say on how to do paint, how to cut and buff, how to do windows, how to take the film off windows, stuff like that. Well, anyway, when I say film, one that gets that like the calcium deposit on it and you can't get it off, I can take that off for you or show you how to take it off. I've got a product for it. So I said, yeah. So which car did he give me? The Ruby car. It's all right. Well, he was had to go out to Iowa for something for a couple of days. When he come back, I had the car done. I said, there's the Corvette. He couldn't believe it. He's like, wow. I said, if I insulted you, I said, you didn't insult me. It's okay. And he said, do you want to do another one? I said, it's up to you. Well, we done the Blazer. And it turned out equally as well. And he said, maybe you ought to be on the team. And I said, is that an invitation? And he said, yeah. Good, I like that. I said, it won't even cost you anything. I don't want to be an employee on the thing, but I said, I'll show up every day for work, and anything you got for me, bring it on. I said, okay, that's fine. Well, that's how that came about. And that's just a great moment in my life to be on that team. Now, that team probably says about me, man, get them old people out of here. But I can't sing enough of their praises on the thing of what them guys do, how good they are at what they do. And they are very good at what they do. And it's not a paid political announcement, don't get me wrong. They'll kill me for saying this anyway. So that was how that came about, that relationship on it. And he said, can you travel? And I said, yep. Don't have to ask your wife? And I said, nope, don't have to ask nobody. Just jump in a car and go, which we do. And it is a segment of my life that you couldn't put a price tag on. It's just, you couldn't put a price tag on it. It's such a fortunate time for me. And they kid me a lot on the thing about being old and all that, and that's fine. I love it. And then I kid them right back, well, hey, if you guys live long enough, you'll go through the same thing that I did. I mean, this old age ain't fun. Oh, it ain't a bit of fun. So, and it ain't for the weak of heart. So do yourself a favor. If you're 30 or 35 or something like that, just stay there. Don't get old. Don't go through the experience. It's an awful experience. Anyway, that's how that relationship came there. And I really can't say enough good things about them on it because, any company or any whatever on the thing, if you want to dredge up something, I suppose you could, but them guys, they're a class act. They are a class act. I get to interchange with Motion Industries, another class act, that whole bunch. And their TBM brake thing, whoop-de-doo, them boys are, oh my. Anyway, if you guys would leave me from time to time, leave me a couple of comments on the things. Hey, okay, I just rambled on here this afternoon, but tell me subjects you'd like to know different than what I did, what I didn't do, some of the recreation stuff. Where I grew up, there was a lot of trout fishing around the Asheville area, and I was a pretty good fly fisherman. My dad was better. I couldn't have tied his shoes, and we done a lot of trout fishing, which you had brown trout, brook trout, rainbow trout, and then you get way high in the mountains, and it's speckled trout. Now, the water has to be of a certain temperature for speckled trout to live here in this area. Now, in Colorado, it's different, although it's called speckled, but it is different. Well, it's just such a relaxing thing to go and you fish. And more times than not, them fish are very safe with me. Two things. One, I may not catch anything that day, but if I do, I always turn it back. I really do, because a lot of them native fish, when you get way high in the mountains like that, they reproduce, yeah, but I like to just give them another fighting chance. After you've caught it, it's like, okay, what are you going to do now? If you're not going to prepare this thing and have it as a meal, put it back in the water. That's why now you guys probably didn't know this, but I'll share something with you. When you've caught a fish, now they got gloves and stuff you can wear now, but if you're just bare-handing it, have your hand in the water for a little while so that your hand gets pretty close to the same temperature as the water, So now when you put your hand around that fish, he's not raising Cain. Because a lot of times the reason that thing is really flopping around there after you get a hold of him, if you take your hand, okay, there's 98 degrees, okay? How about that fish's body? What temperature is it? Cold. He's in 55 degrees. You take this, that's like a hot iron. Well, get your hand down at the same, temperature as his, or very close to it, and it doesn't hurt the fish. When you get it so your hand's hot like that and touch it, it's hard on the fish. And anyway, just mention that to you, that a lot of times that fish will later on die. So get you same temperature. Yeah, you can catch it in the net, but make sure your hand's real cold. You come up just like that, and you'll find that if your hand is good and cold, about the same temperature as that fish is, when you hold it, he's not flopping around a lot. Just keep your hand in there, and then take your hook out and send him on. So that's a tip for today. I've got I'm going to do tomorrow night. I'm doing a video, and it's called Tips That I Have Learned Through My Life that have helped me through my life. And it's just things that sometimes you look back at them and you think, well, that's pretty obvious. Well, it is if after you've done it, everything's like the guy told me one time. He says, well, it's easy to build a rocket ship if you got the plans and you know what to do. Build one. That's true. But if someone tells you, build me a rocket ship, you got no plans, no nothing, that's complicated. Well, I've put down some, and some of them are like, and then somebody's going to say, that's common sense. I realize that. But I just want to share some of these things with you, like things that I have found that, you think, okay, that'd work. Well, that's what I want to share with you guys, because you share so much with me. Anyway, I'll stop rambling there. Please leave me some stuff from time to time. Hey, how about this? How about that? What'd you do with this? How about this? I've run several how-to videos. People say, well, how about this cutting and buffing thing? That seems to come up a lot. And I tell folks, if you're ready for that, we'll do some of those. And let me say to you now, if you want to get the results we're looking for now, not that my way is the only way, it's just a way that works, okay? And I'll show you a couple of ways that I do it that works well for me, and it'll keep you safe, because it's a good way to get yourself in trouble and have to call the painter. You don't ever want to do that. So that's one of the things that we'll go over. I've got a little video on it, but we'll go more in depth on it, say just one whole session of that, what you're looking for, what you're not looking for, and what to do. So with that, we'll sign off for the evening here, and maybe go in a little while, get something to eat. And it's so nice to share time with y'all, and I mean that. And you got something you'd like for me to go into, a subject to delve into, I don't know it till you say it. Talk to y'all later.